I get asked a lot of questions in the following scope. How do you accelerate manifestations? How do you release identification to beliefs that result in doing this or that which is not helpful, or being controlling rather than trusting the unseen power? And so today's video is dedicated to these questions. And we're going straight to the source, hence why I titled this mind map, Awareness, True Identity. So I refer to this a lot on the screen. It's the Robert Dill's logical levels, a wonderful model. And there are many wonderful models that contribute to bring forth the life that you desire. For further elaboration on this model, I'll link in the description to a recent video. Now, when I speak of identity in the context of this model, we refer to your chosen identity and the attributes that you choose to embody that make up this identity, which include your values and beliefs, capabilities, which are skills, behaviors, and environments, which flow automatically from your vision up here, done for you by the power of your subconscious mind. Now, by the title of this mind map, Awareness, True Identity, I'm referring to your formless self up here. The self that transcends all attributes in all layers of this model. This understanding is the answer to many of the questions I receive. Thus, I'd like to emphasize this more today than I've ever been emphasizing this in all the other conversations we've been having. And this allows you to feel into existence all ideal attributes related to your vision, minus unnecessary resistance. See, you actually transcend unnecessary resistance. You feel into existence. Acknowledge that. Feel into existence. Feel into existence. Like that's the way it is. The way you imagine it is. And so resistance is a result of resistance-based beliefs. If you are not identified with those beliefs, you would not have that resistance. Resistance can be then the result of beliefs which represent over-identification with aspects within these bottom three layers, as in how we subconsciously relate to capabilities, behaviors, and environments, which includes people, environments, circumstance, and information. This is the distinction from one who flows through their entrepreneurial initiatives versus unnecessarily forcing themselves through them. Force is caused by restrictive beliefs that are looking to be released. Now, I made a video recently on falling in love with the resistance to release identification to the beliefs. If you have not seen it, I'll link in the description to it. Now, one of the easiest ways I've found to release identification to beliefs and remain in your ideal state of consciousness is the following. Take a moment and acknowledge that you have a body. You have a mind, and you have life experiences reflected in the three layers here. Now, as you reflect upon this, acknowledge that the you who is acknowledging and reflecting is beyond these areas. Acknowledge this as well, that this is you, who is beyond the beliefs in mind that are related to a personal identity around these layers. Then remain still in that silence. It is your awareness of being. You transcend thus. You are thus the I placed on the top here. The unconditional, unbiased observer of it all. And by transcend, I mean by definition, beyond the perceived range of limits or perceived limitations of these areas. In other words, limitations in relation to these areas are perceived. They can only exist in mind, specifically the subconscious aspect of mind, which stores the beliefs. As I always say, this world is made up of beliefs, which means anything accepted as true. Notice then, we can change what is accepted as true. For example, a person may believe that one way of doing things is better than another. That is a belief they are identifying with, which we can call a personal truth. The universal truth, and by that I mean the truth that exists beyond personal truth, is the truth that you exist. This is the formless self, and this remains constant. For example, where you were 5 years ago is the same you at this level in relation to where you are now. It is the same you at this level. Now, the personal identity, beliefs, and life experiences in these areas may have appeared to change, which include people, environment, circumstance, and information. Yet what remains the same is awareness of being, and that truth remains. This is what I mean by awareness, true identity, self-realization. And as you apply this, you'll find, as mentioned earlier, it is easier to release identification to beliefs, and autosuggestions become easier. You'll find it easier to accept a suggestion like that's the way it is, because you realize experientially that you truly exist beyond any resistance in relation to these suggestions. For example, what used to take me about 20 minutes of meditation to release identification to thoughts for various applications is now instant through this practice. Even then, what happens now is I don't do the inquiry like I just mentioned. And you and I are no different. You could do the same if you'd like to. This is my story of how I got here, and we each have a story of life experiences that brings us to this realization, and it's perfect. I don't consider one story better than another. So now from this position, what we choose to accept as true for life appearances, as in what you feel as real in imagination, is done easier, and the appearances change accordingly. Yet what remains the same is this formless self, the self that is beyond a chosen identity, values and beliefs, capabilities, behaviors, and environment. And that is what I refer to here as the true identity. But you don't have to call it true identity or define it. You could call it whatever you'd like for reference, which is the awareness that is aware of all the changes and transformations that have appeared as life appearances and experiences. You are beyond all that you have consented to be true. This in some traditions is known as self-realization, which refers to the direct experience of the self. And you realize the self upon a process like this, neti. I am not this, I am not that, which in relation to this model here, I am not the environment, I am not the behaviors, I am not the capabilities, I am not the values and beliefs, I am not the identity I imagined myself to be, I am not identified with the vision that is not ideal. I am the awareness that transcends this all, from which I consciously accept a vision as true, from which I choose the personal identity of the character which operates through specific values and beliefs which automatically play out in my skills or capabilities, behaviors, and environments. So simply put, I'm not the state which appears as all of this. I feel into being the state from which everything that trickles down here plays out automatically by the unseen power. Another way of saying the same thing is you are life itself, and you give form to how you desire your life to be through your imagination. Notice how now you can easily feel from this position as real how you desire to be. So in summary thus far, you transcend the personal identity, as you are aware of having a personal identity. So thus you transcend it. This is what I refer to as self-realization. Now we have also discussed in another video recently, which has a similar process for the discovery of the self, which is beyond form. I'll link in the description to it, and I trust you'll find that to be helpful as well. And I recommend taking a moment now and then to acknowledge this self, like we discussed thus far, and also, if helpful, in the video mentioned, as this facilitates easier release of identification to beliefs that are not helpful, as you realize experientially that you are beyond them and beyond conjecture. Regular practice of acknowledging that you are beyond the beliefs actually helps release identification to the unhelpful beliefs if you choose to do so. Now, there are many other benefits to realizing what I mentioned, awareness being your true identity, which James Allen articulated really well in The Heavenly Life, the section titled The Divine Center. Starting with, and I brought this up many times in a number of videos recently, he says, "The secret of life, of abundant life, with its strength, its felicity, and its unbroken peace, is to find the divine center within oneself, and to live in and from that, instead of in that outer circumference of disturbances, the clamors, cravings, and argumentations which make up the animal and intellectual." So what we're referring to today is the divine center, your awareness of being, where all magic happens and from where all the magic appears. The power that dwells in this divine center is actualized, practically speaking, by imagining life to appear in and as the different layers, for example, if we take this model here. It is also a position of unbroken peace. The experience of lack of peace is a result of identification to corresponding beliefs that result in the outer circumference experienced as disturbances, clamors, cravings, and argumentations, which make up the animal and intellectual, as he said. Notice again how these areas are related to beliefs. For example, why would one choose to unnecessarily argue with another unless they believe that the act will result in some benefit, or they do it unconsciously without questioning it? Is that truly the only way to realize the benefit? Well, we've all seen many times by working with this information that we discuss, issues resolving themselves by simply letting them be. It's resolved in unknown ways, the ways of the unseen. This is not to imply that it's not worth having a conversation with another, rather pointing to the fact that if the conversation was from the divine center, we would realize that the divine center is the same in another person. It's the same in them, and it is the same in us. And from this foundational realization, it will result in a different conversation, one of mutual harmony, love, and benefit, rather than one resulting in pain and or humiliation, as he says here. They love the argumentations of the intellect, for egotism seems most desirable to them, but the fruits thereof are humiliation and sorrow. So that is not a true desire. That is a belief in which a person who identifies with it, either consciously or unconsciously, believes that that's the only way to get the benefit. He also says, "They who resolve that they will not rest satisfied with appearances, shadows, illusions, shall, by that piercing light of that resolve, disperse every fleeting fantasy, and shall enter into the substance and reality of life." So as mentioned, appearances, shadows, illusions are transcended by acknowledging your awareness of being. Because from this awareness, we realize clearly that they are related to beliefs in mind, and knowing this, they can be released if applicable, causing them to disappear or appear differently. Now, in the unfailing wisdom section, which is also related to this, it is ideal to be superior to possessions, body, circumstances and surroundings and the opinions of others and our attitude towards them. Until one is this, they are not strong and steadfast. So how do you truly then be superior to these aspects without force? It is by acknowledging that you already are truly superior to these aspects. And although one may choose to identify with them, it's their choice. If they choose not to identify with them, then that is also their choice. It is through your choice where you can apply the unseen power to change appearances. This proves an equation to yourself that you are in fact superior to these aspects. He says, those who regard themselves as the outcome and the tool of circumstances will weakly fluctuate with every change in their outward condition. So this brings us to a nice epilogue. We discussed a lot about releasing identification to beliefs that result, for example, in drifting. For this, I recommend the video I released last week discussing Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, or beliefs that result in unnecessarily looking outside for approval or validation before allowing oneself to be how they truly desire to be. As you realize that you transcend all beliefs, looking towards appearances for approval or validation, you are free from what could be considered as secondary causes, as we discussed in Sunday's video, which I'll link to in the description, quoting Neville Goddard, where he said, "When you know that consciousness is the one and only reality, conceiving itself to be something good, bad, or indifferent, and becoming that which it conceived itself to be, you are free from the tyranny of second causes, free from the belief that there are causes outside of your own mind that can affect your life. In the state of consciousness of the individual is found the explanation of the phenomena of life." So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I acknowledge that I am the unbiased, unconditional observer of all that appears. From this pure observation point in relation to all that appears, I choose how I would like it to appear and accept it as so, thus allowing the unseen power to take care of everything for me, to bring forth how I'd like it to be from this state of blissful flow. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.